Sir, this seat is not for people like you." The words fell heavy, sharp, and humiliating inside the first-class cabin, and for a moment the entire section froze in stunned silence. A man in a tailored Tom Ford suit, Ethan Brooks, chairman of the board of American Airlines, sat calmly in seat 1A, his watch catching the glow of the cabin lights. But the insult from flight attendant Lauren Mitchell cut deeper than anyone watching could have imagined. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? Comment below, hit like, and subscribe for more stories of truth and justice. The September afternoon flight from Chicago O'Hare to Miami was supposed to be a routine journey. Yet it began with a challenge that revealed how far bias can still reach in 2024. Ethan had boarded quietly, offering a polite nod to the crew, and settled into his assigned seat with the calm authority of a man used to navigating both boardrooms and crowded terminals. He opened his iPad to review notes for the coming board session in Dallas, his Louis Vuitton briefcase tucked neatly beneath his seat. Yet Lauren Mitchell, with 12 years of experience as a flight attendant, approached with a smile that was more rehearsed than warm. Her eyes lingered too long. Her voice carried an edge too sharp. "Sir, I need to verify your ticket. This seat is typically reserved for special passengers." That word, special, rolled from her lips with an unspoken meaning, one that made passengers in nearby seats raise their eyebrows. Ethan glanced up, his expression steady, and displayed his e-ticket on his phone. American Airlines, seat 1A, confirmed. But Lauren's brow furrowed, her voice stiffened, and she pressed on. "I'll also need identification." Ethan, practiced in patience, slid out his Texas driver's license and an American Express black card, the kind of proof no airline staff could dispute. She glanced at them quickly, but instead of reassurance, suspicion hardened in her eyes. She stepped back and whispered into her radio, "Captain, we may have an issue in first class." At that very moment, Chloe Rivera, a 22-year-old influencer in seat 3B, tilted her phone upright and began streaming to her followers. "Guys, you won't believe this," she whispered. "They're questioning a passenger in seat 1A. This is about to go down." Within seconds, thousands tuned in, hearts and comments filling the screen. Ethan didn't flinch. He sat tall, glanced at his Audemars Piguet watch, and tapped a short reply to a message from his legal team. "Ready, sir. Just give the word." Lauren returned with a voice that trembled but still pressed the claim. "Sir, if you don't comply further, we'll need to call security." Her tone carried both nerves and misplaced confidence. Ethan finally raised his eyes, voice calm but firm. "Ms. Mitchell, questioning a valid passenger without cause violates your company's policy. Are you certain you want to continue down this path?" His words landed like a warning, a reminder of authority she had not yet recognized. Chloe's live stream surged past 50,000 viewers, each one witnessing the clash between dignity and doubt. The businessman in 1B shifted uncomfortably, while a couple in 4C angled their phones to capture the confrontation. Lauren's composure cracked, her cheeks flushed, yet she forced herself to stand tall. "Sir, with all due respect, you don't look like someone who belongs in that seat." The cabin gasped. Even those trying to hide their curiosity leaned in closer. Ethan's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, not of amusement, but of someone who had heard those words too many times before. He adjusted his cufflinks, then spoke in a measured tone. "What exactly does someone who belongs look like?" "Ms. Mitchell?" The silence after his question was heavy, filled only by the soft hum of the aircraft's systems and the rapid tapping of passengers sharing the moment online. Chloe's voice cracked as she whispered to her viewers. "Did you all hear that? She said he doesn't look like he belongs. This is racism in real time." Her chat exploded with outrage. Hashtags began forming, and within minutes the term American Airlines bias was trending. Lauren swallowed hard, unsure whether to retreat or double down. But the pressure of eyes on her and the unseen weight of thousands watching online pushed her further. "I've seen enough cases of fake tickets and imposters," she muttered, as if convincing herself. "We have to be cautious." Ethan's expression never changed. Calm, measured, patient, yet beneath the calm. His silence carried the weight of storms. He glanced once more at his watch, a deliberate gesture, then said softly, "If you're so certain, then call your captain. Let us not waste more time." And so she did, signaling the beginning of a chain of events that would shake the airline to its core. Passengers leaned forward. Chloe zoomed in. Comments poured faster than she could read. And in those tense minutes before the captain's arrival, the balance of power in that cabin shifted in ways few could comprehend. Ethan, still seated, still dignified, prepared to show the world what happens when dignity meets prejudice under the scrutiny of millions. And though the engines of the Boeing 787 remained quiet, the storm already raged inside its cabin. Captain Daniel Carter stepped into the cabin with the weight of 27 years of flying behind him. His uniform neat, his voice carrying the authority of command. But what he did not expect was the electric silence that met him as every passenger turned to watch. Phones raised, eyes fixed, hearts pounding with the tension of what had already begun. And as he looked at flight attendant Lauren Mitchell pointing toward seat 1A, he saw Ethan Brooks sitting calm and unshaken, his Tom Ford suit impeccable, his gaze sharp, his iPad resting lightly on his lap as though none of this chaos could disturb him. And Lauren's words cut through the cabin with an edge of misplaced certainty. "Captain, this man refuses to provide valid identification. I suspect his ticket is fake." A statement that should have sounded like protocol but instead came out brittle. And Carter took the phone from Ethan, examined the e-ticket, the American Express black card, the Texas license, everything in order, nothing out of place. Yet Lauren leaned closer, her whisper meant to be private but caught clearly by Chloe Rivera's live-stream camera. "Captain, look at him. He doesn't belong in first class." And in that instant, the crowd watching online swelled past 100,000. Comments scrolling so quickly Chloe could barely read them. Voices crying out, "This is racism, pure and simple. American Airlines is finished. Get his name. He's about to end careers." While inside the cabin, the tension reached a breaking point, because Ethan did not rise, did not shout, did not flinch. He simply lifted his eyes and asked, "Ms. Mitchell, when you say I don't belong, what exactly do you mean?" And the weight of his words dropped like iron, pulling every gaze back to Lauren, whose face flushed red, her lips quivering but her pride refusing retreat. "I know how people like you get first-class tickets," she said, her tone sharp, defensive, dripping with prejudice she did not even attempt to hide, and the businessman in 1B leaned back as if struck. The couple in 4C exchanged horrified looks. Passengers whispered, but no one spoke loud enough to drown out the sound of Chloe's phone capturing every syllable, sending it to hundreds of thousands who amplified it with fury. And Captain Carter, caught between protocol, his crew, and the undeniable evidence in front of him, made a decision he would regret. "Sir, I am asking you to deplane now. Let's resolve this at the gate." His words meant to de-escalate, but instead igniting something larger, because Ethan's calm voice, low and steady, carried more authority than the captain's order. "I am in my assigned seat. I have shown valid identification. If you wish to remove me, then call security. But understand this. You are not just asking me to leave. You are placing this airline on trial before the world." And as he spoke, he glanced at his watch once more. A subtle gesture, but one that told Carter this man was not afraid. This man was prepared. And Lauren folded her arms as though she had already won. Yet her confidence cracked the moment two uniformed security officers appeared at the front of the cabin, Ryan Torres with handcuffs clipped to his belt, Olivia Hayes with a radio pressed to her shoulder, both ready for confrontation but unprepared for what they were about to discover. Because Ethan, with measured calm, reached into his Louis Vuitton briefcase and produced a simple white card, sliding it forward as if handing over the final piece of evidence in a trial. And Olivia picked it up, reading the embossed letters aloud in a voice that trembled despite her training. Ethan Brooks, chairman of the board, American Airlines. And the cabin fell silent. A silence so heavy it felt like gravity itself had doubled. Lauren stumbled back into a seat, her hand covering her mouth. Carter's face drained of color as the reality of what he had just ordered sank in. Chloe's live stream count leapt to 200,000, the comments exploding with shock. "He's the chairman. He owns the board. This is the end. They just profiled their own boss. This is history unfolding right now." And Ethan finally leaned back, his voice still calm but edged with steel. "Captain Carter, Miss Mitchell, every second of this has been recorded, every word broadcast live to millions. The world is watching, and now you must ask yourselves, who truly does not belong here?" And though Carter's instinct was to defend himself, to salvage authority, he felt the weight of his daughter's face in his mind. His daughter with skin darker than his, the child who had once asked him why people looked at her differently. And in that moment, the hypocrisy struck him with a force greater than turbulence at 30,000 feet. He had judged a man who looked like his own child, and still he opened his mouth to plead. "Sir, we did not know who you were. Please give us a chance to fix this." But Ethan shook his head slowly, each movement deliberate. A chance is not owed. Not after humiliation without cause. Not after being ordered off a plane for nothing more than existing in this seat. And the live stream surged past 300,000. Hashtags multiplying. News outlets picking up the feed. Twitter headlines flashing across screens. And passengers who once whispered now sat in reverent silence, aware they were witnesses to a reckoning. And though the engines of the aircraft still waited for permission to start, the true flight had already begun, one that would carry this story beyond the cabin, beyond the runway, into the halls of justice and the court of public opinion. Because in that cabin, the balance of power had shifted, and Ethan Brooks, without standing, without raising his voice, had grounded more than just a flight. He had grounded a system of prejudice that could no longer fly unnoticed. The moment Olivia Hayes read his name aloud, the world outside that cabin began to shake. Because Chloe Rivera's live stream, already bursting with hundreds of thousands of viewers, suddenly surged past 5 million as the words, "Chairman of the Board." American Airlines echoed across phones and laptops everywhere, and the internet did what it always does: magnified, amplified, and intensified. Within minutes, the hashtag American Airlines bias sat at the very top of trending charts. Pushed there by voices crying out against injustice, they just profiled their own chairman. This is bigger than one man. This is systemic. End racial bias in the skies now. And mainstream networks moved faster than even the crew could process. CNN cutting into scheduled programming, MSNBC streaming Chloe's feed directly. The Wall Street Journal posting a breaking headline, "American Airlines chairman confronted by crew over first-class seat." Inside the cabin, the atmosphere turned from tense to suffocating. The crew visibly unraveling while Ethan Brooks remained steady, his iPad now resting on the table before him, glowing with a document ready to strike. Lauren Mitchell stammered, words collapsing as she tried to explain herself. I was following protocol. I didn't think." But Ethan's voice, sharp yet calm, interrupted, slicing through her panic. "Didn't think what?" "Ms. Mitchell, That a black man could sit here? That my presence in seat 1A must mean fraud? Passengers gasped again. Chloe's lens zooming in on Lauren's tear-streaked face, her expression swinging from arrogance to collapse, and the comments from millions watching lit up with fury. She's finished. Hold them accountable. This will cost them billions. Captain Carter, standing rigid, received a vibration on his phone from the airline's PR department. A simple line that made his stomach churn. AA stock down 9%. Market loss 1. 8 billion and falling. He looked at Ethan, realizing this was no longer a dispute over a seat, but a corporate crisis unraveling before the world. Yet Ethan showed no sign of panic, no raised voice, only the calm of a man who knew his strength. Then came the call. FaceTime lighting up with the name Michelle Patel, CEO of American Airlines, her face strained, her voice low but urgent. Ethan, we're monitoring. The board is in emergency session. We have 6 million viewers right now. Handle this discreetly. Ethan's response, measured but cold. Discretion does not fix racism. Michelle, silence has carried it too long, and today it ends. Chloe held her phone closer, whispering to her audience. Did you hear that? He just told the CEO live that it ends today. And her viewers multiplied again, approaching 7 million. Lauren shook her head violently. This isn't fair. I was only doing my job. I've seen passengers with fake tickets before. I had to be careful. But Ethan's hand rose gently, silencing her protest. Careful is not accusing without cause. Careful is not humiliating a paying customer in front of strangers. Careful is not deciding who belongs based on skin. His words, slow and deliberate, rolled like thunder across the cabin, and even those passengers who had remained neutral now nodded, some murmuring agreement, one woman in row 4 whispering, "He's right. This is exactly what's wrong." Carter tried again, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "Sir, I beg you, let us deplane you and sort this privately. The damage doesn't have to get worse." But Ethan's eyes narrowed, his tone even lower. "Damage is what you inflicted, Captain, and there will be no hiding it. If you try to remove me, understand this. I will not fight. I will not resist. But the lawsuit that follows will reshape this airline forever. Then," as if to prove his words, he tapped his iPad, pulling up a prepared document, the title glowing across the screen. Class action complaint, discrimination against 4,200 passengers. 2019-2024, and the numbers beneath made the cabin shudder. Estimated damages, $600,000 per passenger. Total liability, $2.52 billion. Chloe gasped, turning her camera to capture the screen, and her viewers erupted. This is history. He was ready. He knew. This is bigger than United dragging that doctor. This is corporate collapse live. He's about to own the skies. Ethan leaned back, one hand resting on the armrest, his watch catching the light again as he spoke with surgical precision. "I did not come here today to sue, but you forced this path with arrogance and bias, and now you will feel the cost of ignorance." Carter's lips parted, words dying in his throat, his mind flashing to his daughter, the girl who had asked why people sometimes looked at her differently. And he realized too late that he had just participated in the very injustice he had sworn to protect her from. Lauren covered her face, whispering through her fingers, "I didn't know who he was." And Ethan answered without mercy, "That is exactly the point. You did not need to know who I was to treat me with respect." Chloe's live stream surged again, now past 8 million, journalists messaging her directly, law firms tagging the feed, civil rights organizations posting statements within minutes. The world beyond the cabin was moving faster than anyone could control. And inside, the reality set in that what began as a routine verification had become a reckoning. Ethan remained seated, unshaken, his voice steady. This flight has not even left the ground, and yet this company has already lost more than the cost of fuel, more than the revenue of its seats. It has lost trust. And that is the most expensive currency in aviation, Chloe whispered. He's destroying them with facts, as her comment section flooded with agreement. Preach. This is bigger than a story. This is change. Captain Carter lowered his head, his authority shattered, while Lauren sat frozen, staring at nothing, knowing her career had ended in less than an hour. Ethan looked at them both, then at the passengers, then finally into Chloe's camera, his words landing not just in the cabin, but across the globe. Today, you are all witnesses. Today the truth is broadcast without filter, and today, silence will not protect the guilty. And as his final sentence echoed, the cabin seemed to exhale, but outside, the storm only grew, because in that moment, with millions watching and billions at stake, the world realized that one man, calm and dignified, had turned a single seat in first class into the front row of history. The cabin lights dimmed slightly, as if even the aircraft itself could sense the weight of what was about to happen, because with every passing minute the crisis grew heavier, louder, and more dangerous. And now the final line had been crossed as Security Officer Olivia Hayes stepped forward with a pair of silver handcuffs in her hands, her voice firm but tinged with unease. Sir, this is your last chance to deplane voluntarily before we are forced to restrain you. Passengers gasped at the sight. Chloe Rivera's live stream camera zoomed in close, and the comments from nearly 9 million viewers thundered across the screen. They're about to handcuff the chairman. This is going to destroy American Airlines. Don't you dare touch him. Ethan Brooks did not move, did not flinch, his hands resting lightly on his lap, his voice calm, clear, unshaken. Officer Hayes, before you make a decision you cannot take back, I want you to see this. Slowly. He reached into his Louis Vuitton briefcase, pulled out his iPad, and tapped the screen until a bold document appeared. The heading stark and undeniable. Class action lawsuit, discrimination in aviation, representing 4,200 passengers. Estimated damages $2,520,000,000. The number glared from the screen like a warning siren, and Olivia froze, her grip on the cuffs loosening as she read, while Ryan Torres shifted uneasily behind her, knowing every camera in that cabin was recording this moment. Ethan turned his gaze to Lauren Mitchell, whose face was pale, her shoulders slumped in collapse. Ms. Mitchell, your words and actions today have not only humiliated me, they have just exposed your company to the largest lawsuit in its history. Do you understand the gravity of what you've done? Lauren tried to answer, her lips trembling. I didn't mean... But Ethan cut her off with the precision of a gavel striking wood. Intentions do not erase impact. You did not care about the truth. You cared about your bias. The words reverberated through the cabin like a verdict, and Chloe's audience climbed again, surging past 9.5 million, comments exploding. He's teaching them live. This is the end of her career. Corporate America is watching at that very second. Ethan's phone buzzed again, and Michelle Patel, CEO of American Airlines, appeared on the screen, her voice shaky, the sound of murmurs and shouting behind her. Ethan. The board is in emergency session. Our stock is collapsing. You have to stop this now. Do not let security touch you. Please. Ethan raised the phone for all to see, his reply deliberate. Too late. Michelle, your employees have already crossed that line. This is not just about me. This is about the thousands who have been silenced for years. I will not hide this under the rug for your shareholders, Chloe whispered into her stream. He just defied the CEO live. He's not backing down. And the comments surged with fire. This man is a hero. This is how change begins. End systemic bias now. Captain Daniel Carter, standing only feet away, felt his world collapse around him, his authority shredded, his years of service suddenly meaningless. And in desperation he spoke. Sir, I know I was wrong, but I have a daughter of color. I cannot lose my job. I cannot face her knowing I failed." Ethan turned to him slowly, his expression softening only enough to show the weight of his own scars. "And what of the 4,200 passengers before me?" "Captain." Each humiliated, each silenced. Did they not have families? Did they not have children? Did they not deserve respect? You had the chance to be better, and you chose convenience over courage? Carter's lips parted. His eyes stung, but no words came. Because deep down, he knew Ethan was right. And in that moment, the image of his daughter's face haunted him more than the loss of his career ever could. Ryan Torres finally stepped forward, uncertain, torn between orders and conscience. But Ethan's voice halted him mid-step. "Officer Torres, if you lay a hand on me, you will not just be restraining an innocent passenger. You will be placing yourself in a courtroom where millions of witnesses testify against you. Choose wisely." The officer hesitated, his hand falling back to his side, his body language betraying the truth. He would not do it. Olivia Hayes lowered the cuffs slowly, her voice quieter now. "Sir, I see your point. I cannot proceed with this." And in that instant, the power dynamic flipped completely, because the crew who once commanded the cabin now stood powerless, their authority crumbling under the weight of truth, law, and millions of eyes. Chloe's live stream surged again, now past 10 million. News outlets embedding her feed directly, civil rights leaders calling for statements, politicians tweeting demands for accountability, the pressure stretching far beyond the walls of that Boeing 787. Ethan leaned forward, folding his hands, his voice steady but filled with unshakable authority. "Understand this. Each second you delayed justice added to the price your company will pay, not just in dollars, but in trust, in reputation, in the very soul of aviation. Today you will be remembered not for keeping passengers safe, but for trying to chain one to his seat because of the color of his skin." His words sank deep into the cabin air, leaving silence heavy and unbearable, Lauren weeping into her hands, Carter gripping the back of a seat for balance, Olivia and Ryan staring at the floor in shame. Yet Ethan remained still, composed. A man who had seen this pattern too many times, a man determined that this time would be the last. And as Chloe whispered to her audience, "History is being written right now." Her comment section filled with unity and rage, the cry of millions echoing a truth long overdue: dignity belongs in every seat. The aircraft began to taxi slowly toward the runway, engines humming with restrained power. But inside the first-class cabin, the storm had not passed. It had only sharpened. Because Ethan Brooks sat unmoving in seat 1A while the eyes of every passenger, every crew member, and millions online bore down on him, waiting for what he would do next. And his calm voice broke the silence with words that cut deeper than any order. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you the truth. I boarded this flight to test a system that has failed too many times. In the last quarter alone, we received 78 complaints of discrimination on this airline. I came today not to fly, but to see if the promises of reform were real. And what you all witnessed is proof that they are not." The gasps around the cabin mingled with the relentless flood of Chloe Rivera's live stream comments. Now past 10 million viewers, the screen exploding with messages like, "He planned this. This is history. They failed the test." And Ethan reached into his briefcase again, pulling out a sleek folder embossed with silver letters, placing it on the table before him as though presenting evidence in a courtroom, the title clear for all to see. The Brooks-Rivera Protocol, Anti-Discrimination Training for Aviation. Chloe zoomed her camera in and whispered, "You're all seeing this first. He created a program to end bias in the skies." Lauren Mitchell's knees buckled, and she dropped into the seat across from him, tears running down her face, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't. I didn't know. I didn't think." But Ethan leaned forward, his voice low yet unyielding. You didn't know because you didn't want to. You saw me and saw a threat, not a person. And that choice is why we are here. She sobbed openly, covering her face, while Captain Carter stood nearby, his authority gone, his voice hoarse. Sir, please, I am begging you, don't end my career over this. I know I failed. I know what it looks like. But I have a family. I have a daughter of color. I cannot explain to her that I lost everything because I judged another man who looked like her. Ethan's gaze softened slightly, but his words remained sharp. And yet you did. Captain, you looked at me and saw inconvenience. You ordered me out because it was easier than standing for what was right. You tell me about your daughter. But what about the daughters and sons of the thousands who sat humiliated while crews like yours stayed silent? Did they not deserve the same defense? The captain lowered his eyes, shame pulling his shoulders down, while Chloe whispered into her stream. He's giving them a lesson they'll never forget, and her audience roared in agreement, comments scrolling like wildfire. Ethan let the silence linger, then raised his hand with a gesture that drew every eye back to him. But I am not without mercy. I will give both of you a choice. You can confess publicly, not just here but on national television. Admit your prejudice, own your failure, and dedicate yourselves to advocating against discrimination. Or you can face personal lawsuits with damages of $4 million each, and let the courts decide your future. The words struck like thunder, passengers shifting in their seats, some nodding, some whispering, all recognizing the weight of what was being offered, redemption or ruin. The choice stark and final. Lauren's sobs turned into choked whispers. I'll do it. I'll speak. I'll tell the world. Just please don't take my family's life apart. And Carter's jaw tightened as he fought back tears, his voice cracking. If it means saving my daughter from living in the same cycle of hate, I will confess. I will speak. I will not hide. Ethan nodded once, his expression still stern but edged with the faintest glimmer of resolve. Then understand this. You will not do it for me. You will do it for every passenger you ever doubted, every person you ever dismissed, every child who watched their parent humiliated in silence. This is not my redemption to give. It is yours to earn. Chloe's audience surged past 11 million, comments screaming. He's offering them a path. This is justice with compassion. History is being rewritten live. And Ethan leaned back, his composure intact, his dignity unshaken. Today, in this cabin, we will decide if American Airlines chooses change or clings to prejudice. We will decide if truth takes flight or is grounded once again. But know this, I will not allow silence to win. The engines rumbled beneath them, the plane turning toward the runway. But for everyone inside, the real journey had already begun. And though fear hung heavy in the eyes of the crew, there was also the faint spark of something else, the recognition that even in failure, even in disgrace, there remained a chance to rise again if they dared to face the truth. The wheels of the Boeing 787 touched the runway at Miami International with a shudder that seemed to echo the weight of everything that had just unfolded in the sky. And as the plane slowed its roll, the passengers craned their necks to peer out the windows at the flashing lights of police cars, media vans, and federal investigators already waiting, the scene more fitting for a criminal indictment than a routine landing. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere was thick, every breath measured, every whisper hushed, because all eyes were still fixed on Ethan Brooks, the man who had turned humiliation into a reckoning. He rose slowly from seat 1A, buttoned his Tom Ford jacket with calm precision, and addressed the cabin with a steady voice that carried the weight of final judgment. Today you all witnessed how bias destroys trust, but you also witnessed how truth, when exposed, can change everything. This is bigger than me. This is about every passenger who has ever been told they do not belong. Chloe Rivera angled her phone toward him, her live stream still running with more than 12 million viewers. Comments pouring in like a flood. This is history. He's a leader. Change starts today. As the doors opened, uniformed officers stepped in, but not to arrest Ethan. Rather, they moved toward Lauren Mitchell and Captain Carter, who stood pale and trembling, their fate already sealed. Over the intercom came the cool but clipped voice of CEO Michelle Patel, patched in from headquarters, effective immediately. Lauren Mitchell and Captain Daniel Carter are suspended pending investigation. Security will escort them off this aircraft. Gasps rippled through the cabin as both crew members lowered their heads, their authority stripped away. Ethan raised a hand, stopping the officers for a moment, his eyes narrowing with the authority of a man who understood the power of mercy. They will leave this plane, but not as criminals. They will leave as examples. Let them face the public. Let them face the truth. And let them decide whether to walk a path of redemption. The officers nodded, understanding the balance he demanded. Chloe's camera caught every moment, the comments praising Ethan's restraint, justice with dignity. This is leadership. Outside the jet bridge, the chaos was immediate. More than 24 media vans, cameras flashing like lightning, microphones shoved toward the doors, reporters shouting questions. Mr. Brooks, will you sue the airline? Will the crew be fired permanently? What reforms will follow? Ethan stepped into the bright Miami sun, his expression unwavering, and held up the silver-embossed folder that had become the symbol of the entire ordeal. This is the Brooks-Rivera Protocol. It will become the new standard for American aviation. Independent audits, body cameras for crew, zero tolerance for bias, and a $20 million program to train every employee. The skies will no longer be a place for prejudice. The crowd roared, reporters jostling to capture his words, while Chloe's feed surged again, mainstream outlets cutting directly to her stream as if she were now part of the press corps herself. Lauren and Carter, escorted down the ramp, faced the barrage of cameras, their faces pale and wet with shame, knowing they had become symbols of failure, but also aware of the chance Ethan had given them to redeem themselves if they dared. Later that evening, as Ethan met with federal investigators in a private room at the airport, presenting evidence and outlining the protocol, news networks replayed the confrontation from the cabin again and again, pundits calling it the most significant corporate scandal in modern aviation, a moment that would change the industry. Chloe, no longer just an influencer but now hailed as a journalist of conscience, sat in a studio preparing for an MSNBC interview. Her words already quoted by millions. I didn't just stream a fight, I streamed a truth. And as the Miami skyline glowed against the evening sky, Ethan looked out the window of his car, the city lights reflecting on his face, and whispered softly, more to himself than to anyone else. This is only the beginning. 9 months later, the Dallas skyline shimmered under the morning sun as Ethan Brooks sat in his corner office overlooking the city. A man whose quiet dignity had reshaped not just an airline, but an entire industry. And his inbox told the story better than any headline. Among hundreds of messages from shareholders, passengers, and civic leaders was one that stood out. A simple email from a woman in Florida named Emma Collins. She wrote, Mr. Brooks, I recorded discrimination on a Delta flight last week, and because of your example, I stood up, I made them apologize, and they promised reforms. Thank you for giving me courage. Ethan leaned back in his chair, the words sinking deep. A reminder that his fight was no longer just about his seat on Flight 4729, it was about thousands of lives touched since that day. Across the hall, Chloe Rivera walked briskly into his office, no longer the wide-eyed influencer she once was, but now the director of American Airlines' newly launched Dignity in Flight project, her voice confident, her presence commanding. She handed him a report filled with data, videos, and testimonies from airports across the country. "We've trained over 20,000 crew members in the Brooks-Rivera Protocol," she said. "Discrimination complaints have dropped 95%, and our passengers are posting stories of respect and fairness instead of humiliation." Ethan smiled faintly, pride flashing in his eyes as he replied, "You took a live stream and turned it into a movement. Chloe, the world owes you more than likes and comments. It owes you gratitude." Meanwhile, Lauren Mitchell and Captain Carter were on their own paths of redemption, once disgraced. They had chosen the harder road that Ethan had demanded. For 9 months they had traveled from airport to airport, standing before rooms filled with flight attendants, pilots, and gate agents, confessing their failures with raw honesty. Lauren admitted the truth of her bias, often breaking into tears as she told crews, "I looked at a black man in first class and assumed he was a fraud. That moment cost me everything. But it also gave me a chance to rebuild my character. Don't make my mistake." Carter brought his daughter to many of the sessions, the girl who had asked him why people looked at her differently, and together they told their story, father and child side by side, teaching through pain, but also through hope. In time, crews who once rolled their eyes at diversity training now leaned forward, listening, realizing that prejudice could cost them not just a career, but their humanity. Letters began pouring in, some angry, some grateful, but many acknowledging the power of their testimony. One note from a trainee read, "Hearing Captain Carter's daughter speak changed me. I will never treat a passenger the same way again." For Ethan, these ripples were the true measure of change. The financial world had also taken notice. American Airlines, once facing lawsuits and a crumbling reputation, now boasted a stronger brand than before. Share prices had risen 18%, and analysts pointed directly to the company's new zero-tolerance policies as a model for corporate responsibility. The U.S. Department of Transportation confirmed that 15 major airlines had adopted the Brooks-Rivera Protocol, making it an industry standard rather than a company policy. Ethan knew this was the kind of systemic reform he had dreamed of, the kind that could outlast him. That evening, he filmed a short message for social media, speaking directly into the camera with the same calm authority he had displayed in Seat 1A. "Every time you record injustice, every time you refuse to look away, you change the world. Be the next Chloe Rivera. Do not let silence win." The video spread like wildfire, 25 million views in 2 days, translated into multiple languages, embraced as a call to action around the globe. In airports from Atlanta to Tokyo, passengers whispered his name with respect, employees repeated his words in training sessions, and even school children studied the case as part of lessons on justice and accountability. Ethan closed his laptop late that night, the city quiet outside his window, and reflected on the strange path life had taken him down. What began as humiliation on a September afternoon had become a legacy of reform and redemption. For Lauren and Carter, it was the chance to rebuild. For Chloe, it was the opportunity to rise. For American Airlines, it was salvation through accountability. And for Ethan himself, it was proof that power, when used with dignity, could change more than a company. It could change a generation. He poured himself a glass of water, stood at the window, and whispered softly, "Justice has wings now." And with that, the chapter closed, not as the end of one man's fight, but as the beginning of a new flight for everyone who believed in dignity in the skies. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts and where you're from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe for more powerful stories.